Can 45 ACP play with the big boys? 45 ACP versus 357 Magnum versus 44 Magnum. And just a note here, whenever I say versus, I'm not saying that this is a competition. I just really like to compare different things and see how they are. So the 45 ACP is known for being kind of an anemic cartridge for what you're working with, a big bullet, yet the energy oftentimes isn't greater than 9mm. But when you're talking a 45 ACP like I brought out today, it's actually a pretty powerful, effective cartridge. So what I have today with our ammunition is the Hornady custom ammunition. Our 45 ACP is a 230 grain and is a plus P. Our 357 Magnum is a 158 grain, and our 44 Magnum is a 240 grain. So these are all the classic weights of those particular cartridges. So these all use Hornady XTP bullets. So guns used, I'm going to use my Smith & Wesson 686 with a 4 1/8 inch barrel for our 357 Magnum, my Smith & Wesson Model 69 with a 4 1/4 inch barrel for our 44 Magnum, and my Glock 41 with a 5.3 inch barrel for our 45 ACP. And the reason why I use a 5-inch auto to compare to a 4-inch revolver is because the overall size is about the same, and you got about the same amount of barrel travel, because by ATF definitions, a 5-inch barrel is actually 5.3 inch, includes the chamber. So you're looking at pretty much from the bullet nose to the muzzle, you're looking at something like 4.1 inches of travel there. With this particular revolver, it's 4.125 inch. So I would say that's a pretty comparable way to compare those. Our 357 mag is rated at 1250 feet per second. Our 44 mag is rated at 1350 feet per second. I don't see a rating for our 45. I think that's on the bottom here, the way Hornady does this. Yeah, this is rated at 950 feet per second. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get with these, see if we can confirm some of those velocity numbers. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test here. I'm going to go into plain clear ballistics to see what the best potential is of those cartridges are. Then after that, I'm going to do more of a real world simulation where I have 4 layers of denim on the first piece here. That's a 3-inch piece that represents our pectoral muscle. Got to remember, clear ballistics here is roughly a half representation of human flesh. So 3 inches of this is like 1.5 inches of a pectoral muscle. After that, I'm going to have a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent head and ribs or sternum, and to clear ballistics, and that'll be more of our real world simulation. Then I'm going to shoot at my paper target here. I got a bad guy target. I'm going to shoot at 7 yards to see what kind of accuracy I can get on him. You know, because sometimes follow-up shots can be challenging with more powerful cartridges. So I want to see how I do. And then I am going to shoot at my steel silhouette to see what kind of accuracy I can get on steel. I actually plan on doing about 40 yards at that steel just with a few shots to see what kind of accuracy I can get. So let's get started with this test. All right, so I'm 5 yards from the target. First up, we're going to do our 45 ACP. It's rated at 950 feet per second. Our 357 at 1250, and our 44 mag at 1350. So 45 ACP. Let's see how close I get to 950 feet per second here. 945, 931, 923, 940. 942, so a little bit below rated velocity. 357 mag rated at 1250 feet per second here, and let me grab the 357 here. 1250 feet per second. That might be through a 6-inch barrel, I'm not sure, but let's see what I get here with my Smith & Wesson 686. 1270, 1217, 1203, 1209, 1209, so definitely below rated velocity, which doesn't surprise me for being a Hornady. 44 mag rated at 1350 feet per second here. 44 mag almost always uses a longer barrel than a 4-inch barrel, so I don't expect to get rated velocity, and you know, I wouldn't be disappointed if I don't, but let's see what I get here. 1212, 1295, 1280, 1186, 1280. So very inconsistent there with our rated velocities. So Let's hit our ballistics gel block, see how these all compare. All right, plain clear ballistics, just our best potential here. Here's our 45 ACP. All right, hit that with our 357 Magnum. Let's hit that with the 44 mag now. All right, 44 mag. Let's see what this does. Let's take a look. All right, so quite a bit of difference here. You know, our 45 ACP is definitely a more ideal penetration. Our 357 mag isn't too much penetration, but our 44 mag is a lot of penetration. And that's kind of what most people would probably expect with something like that. So our 45 ACP, we have a penetration of about 15¼ inches. Pretty good expansion, pretty good damage overall, to be honest here. Our 357 and our 44 have about the same amount of damage, and a lot of people will say, oh, that's too close, you know, you're in the same block close, so then everything's skewed. And well, clear ballistics is a little different here. It's synthetic, so it doesn't really make a huge difference here what you're going to see if you're close to another channel. But our 357 Magnum, really good damage along that path. Our actual penetration before we had bounce back was about 19¾ inches. And then our bullet bounced back to about 18½. So that's actually pretty ideal penetration, because clear ballistics is a little bit less dense than real organic gel, and real organic gel you want to see 12 to 18. So if you see a couple inches more clear ballistics, I'm not really concerned at all with that. Our 44 Magnum had just as much damage, maybe a little more, in the first part up here, and then it trucked along with that extra mass and energy, and we went to about 26½ inches of penetration. Just a note, sometimes camera parallax, especially in bullets in the back of this block here, make it look like I'm not lined up where I actually am. But yeah, 26½ inches, a lot of penetration. 26½ is getting to that point where it's like, it is over penetration, but in my mind, I don't think it would pass through a large person. It probably would pass through a small person. So it's on the edge there of if it's too much penetration or not. So now let's do our more real world simulation. I'm going to put on 4 layers of denim on the first part here, our pectoral muscle representation, 1/4 inch medium density fiber board, and we'll see how they compare that way. All right, more of our real world simulation here. 45 ACP. Let's see what this does. Let me set that back up and hit it with the 357 mag now. All right, 357 Magnum. Let's see what this does. I'm going to hit that with the 44 mag. All right, 44 mag. Let's see what this does. Let's go take a look. All right, so with everything set in place here, we can definitely see a difference here in, you know, expansion. There's our 45 ACP. So it looks like after going through the denim in that first 3-inch piece there, that really limited that expansion. Our 357 mag, it does look like we did get some expansion. And again, with our 44 mag, we had some expansion. So it looks like that velocity is just kind of low there with that 45 ACP, and we can kind of see that through its penetration here. We got a lot of penetration. You know, our 45 ACP down here in the bottom, we got MDF in there, good channel there, but then it just lost some steam. I don't see any expansion, and we're at about, I'm going to call it 29 inches of penetration. That's definitely over penetration. Our 357 mag, on the other hand, here we had a little more damage all along this path, and then we lost steam about here, and we have expansion on that bullet. and we're at about 22¼ inches of penetration. A little bit much, but not too bad. Now our 44 mag is just a monster here, a massive amount of damage, just fragmenting up that the MDF all in that channel. A huge amount of damage for a really long ways. We have more here than we have with 45 ACP up here, so it's just a lot of damage. And then we went all up here, and then we started getting bubbles here. That could indicate tumbling. We have some expansion, but it looks like we busted off some of those petals, or it just looks like it's reformed to not very big expansion. We went all the way up to 31 inches of penetration, and it kicked back a little bit. So I would say that's a pretty good load for you know, probably bear defense, but I would not use that for self-defense against a person, because that for sure would over penetrate. I know a lot of people don't like that term. They say it doesn't exist because, you know, the likelihood of somebody standing behind somebody else when that happened is unlikely. But just over penetration in and itself is kind of a failure in a sense. When you get a lot of penetrations, it's saying that it's not expanding a lot. However, being a 44 Magnum, it's kind of in its own class because it can still get expansion and still get mushrooming and go really deep here. So I would say our 44 mag is a pretty good choice here for, you know, defense against animals, or, you know, it could substitute for a personal defense round. Our 45 ACP, I would say, is not that good, even in the plus P variant, because we did not get expansion. Our 357 mag, I would say, just based on the penetration here, I wouldn't use it for like big game defense, but I think it would make a perfect self-defense load, or even, you know, whitetail hunting load. So interesting results. So let's take a close-up look at these bullets here, and I'm gonna shoot my paper target from 7 yards, see how they compare. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets. Our 45 ACP through our plain gel had the most expansion. Looks like really good expansion. Our 357 Magnum, it's a little bit smaller expansion, just from the petals curling back, but that's how the XTP is designed to be. And our 44 Magnum, a little bit bigger than the 357, a little smaller than the 45 ACP. So I would say overall pretty good performance through our plain gel. Now our medium density fiberboard changes a lot of everything, especially with the denim in place, because here's our 45 ACP completely clogged with denim. So the performance wasn't as good as through plain gel, but it is still a 45 caliber bullet, so I'm not gonna discount that for, you know, not expanding, because it's still 45. That's still a pretty big bullet, still does a lot of damage. Now when we look at our 357 Magnum through our medium density fiberboard, almost no difference between this and through the plain gel. Actually, maybe even a little bit bigger, more pedaling going on. So very consistent with our 357 Magnum. It's working consistently. Our 44 mag, a little bit less size than through plain gel when we went through our medium density fiberboard. Close, but a little bit less. So overall, I'm going to say consistently, I think our 357 mag is doing quite well. This isn't super consistent with what it's doing, but that doesn't make it ineffective. That still makes it a good choice. Our 44 mag is pretty brutally powerful, and we got a lot of penetration, some might call over penetration. So that's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, so I'm going to start from low ready. I'm going to try to do a double tap or a controlled pair on target. I am 7 yards here from the muzzle here. That's about the average self-defense situation distance. So I'm going to see how our 45 ACP plus P does. So let's see how I can do it this. All right, I'd say that's pretty easy to control. 357 mag. Let's see what I can do with this. All right, let me try that with the 44 mag now. All right, 44 mag is a lot harder to do this with, and especially this load was pretty powerful. So let's see what I can do with this. Let's go take a look. All right, so I believe that my 44 mags are right here. So really hard to control. You know, I did flinch on that first shot. I felt myself kind of pull back a little bit, like I was hesitant, and then I fired it and I felt it, and then there, you know. But 44 mag is very powerful, so any of those shots would do a pretty good job. I believe these two are my 45 ACPs. And the 357 looks just like the 44s in the way that I shoot them. Just a little more ideal center here. So it's definitely easier to group a 45 ACP with that low recoil. So let me do 2 to the body, 1 to the head, see how I can do with a drill like that. All right, so I'm gonna do our Mozambique drill, 2 to the body, 1 to the head, see how our 45 ACP does from low ready. So let's see how I can do with this. All right, let me go take a look at that real quick. So you have to remember, I'm not really getting, lining up my sights. I'm just getting a front sight picture and popping them off. These two are fine. This is definitely, I mean, I guess it would be a hit, but that's definitely a lot higher than what I want it to be. So let me try a 357 with that same drill. All right, same thing, 357 Magnum. I'm gonna pull up, get a quick sight picture, see what I can do here. So 357 Magnum. Let me go take a look. All right, so while I missed this is not a bad shot, but for whatever reason, I couldn't get that up high like that. I must have just dropped my sight down. Now these are perfectly fine, and that's perfectly fine, so I'm okay with that. But I definitely was not aiming there. I was aiming center here. So while this worked for me, it's not exactly what I wanted to do, but my grouping is a little bit better here, so I'm happy with that at least. So let me try the 44 now. All right, 44 mag. This is not easy, especially with loads like this. I've noticed that when I'm in the 700, 750 foot-pounds energy range out of a gun like this, the recoil is manageable. I believe these get more into like the 800 foot-pounds range out of this particular revolver, and once I get to that point, it gets a lot more difficult. So I'm gonna try my best here. I'm gonna try not to flinch, so I'm just gonna have to slow it down to where I think I can do this. So let's see how I can get with our 44 mag. Let's take a look. So this is one of those things with a 44 mag, you kind of got to think about it a little bit. You almost don't with the 357, because in a steel revolver like that, a heavy steel revolver in a 357, it's not too much different than shooting a 45 ACP out of a polymer pistol. With the 44 mag, you have to think about it, but that's kind of beneficial in a way, because slowing it down allowed me to get perfectly good hits. This is a fine hit. This is basically where I always hit. I always hit in that left eyebrow there. But this is fine, and this is fine. And with a 44 mag, I don't even think the second one would have been needed, but that would have been pretty brutal. So I don't think this guy would be standing after all of that. So interesting here. I could do a little bit better, but I'm relatively happy with those results because at least I hit the guy. So let me shoot my steel, see what kind of just practical shootability I can get from 40 yards. All right, I'm at my 40-yard marker here, 40 yards from the muzzle here. 45 ACP is actually a pretty good cartridge at long range. A lot of people say it's not, because they'll quote these charts where there's more drop at distance than 9mm, but the thing they don't realize is that 9mm stuff like that loses a lot of energy at distance. 45 ACP at distance, it retains a lot of energy because of the momentum it has. So let's see what I can do here. 40 yards, 45 ACP. I'm happy with that performance. It seemed fine to me. 357 Magnum. See if I can make any hits with this. Case ejection with that is fine. I haven't noticed any issues with case ejection. So do a reload here. Keep going, 357 mag. Oh, I got a little bit confident there, overconfident. I was doing pretty well, so. But I think hitting a 5 357s on target would be pretty hard for somebody to manage getting hit with. So 44 mag, a little bit harder to do this. But if I do hit, there's going to be some energy transfer onto that steel. So let's see how I get here. It did not rotate that next round for some reason. I don't know why. Everything seems to be in order, so I'm not sure what happened there. It might be just one of those rare instances where I didn't reset the trigger. A little bit high, and you can see I'm flinching there a little bit, but that thing hits really hard. I'll keep going with this. Oh, I flinched it again. I could have easily hit all of those, but I was going kind of fast with that. So that's a lot of fun there. So it's one of these things here. I'm going to try to say what's the best rounds here for self-defense. Honestly, I'm not going to rule out the 45 ACP because it penetrated pretty far and didn't get expansion through our real-world simulation. We have to understand the 45 ACP was originally designed to work as a ball round, you know, back in the turn of the 20th century. It essentially was created to mimic dum-dum bullets and hollow point bullets, have all that kind of damage, but with a bullet that's legal for warfare. Even though we didn't sign the Hague Convention, you know, we were basically trying to create something that with a ball round was going to work really well. So a non-expanded 230 grain hollow point is doing about what a ball round would do. So we can't discredit it. You know, we got to remember 45 is already, it's 45. It's not going to get smaller. It's 45. You know, there's a lot of cartridges that I want to get to 45 caliber expansion, like a 32. If it gets to 45, I think it's great. So why would I discredit the 45 for staying at 45? You know, it's still pretty good cartridge. Very easy to shoot. You know, for a plus P, it was very easy to shoot. Now, that might be because I'm out here shooting magnums and I go from a 44 mag back to a 45 ACP. I might be like, well, that's a featherweight. That feels like a 22. But honestly, it didn't feel like that much recoil. And sometimes plus Ps are not necessarily super hot. They're just a little bit above, you know, the standard pressure, so they have to be labeled as plus P. So I would say our 45 is a fine cartridge here. Our 44 mag, I'll go into that, and then I'll come back to the 357. Our 44 mag, very brutal recoil, not super consistent velocities, but very powerful. It's a typical 44 mag where you're gonna get a lot of penetration. You get a little bit less than with a jacketed soft point, but it wasn't too bad for the penetration. Now I would say overall, if we're talking self-defense here, probably the best cartridge here is our 357 Magnum. We had a little bit of everything. We had real deep penetration, but not what I would consider over penetration. We had expansion at all times, decent flowering, relatively easy to shoot. It felt like for the most part, I did better, I guess, on paper with that from 7 yards. Even though one of those shots was kind of high, I didn't really put a lot of effort into it. You know, with the Glock, I put some effort into not limp wristing it. With the 44 Magnum, I put some effort into it not flying out of my hands. With the 357, I didn't really put that much effort into it, and it seems like it did really well. So I would say out of all of these three here, our 357 Mag is still a classic winner here. But this is not a competition. I just like to see how they compare. So this is how those three compare: 45 ACP, 357 Magnum, 240 grain, all in XTPs, all in our standard bullet weights. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.